All right, so I usually don't use full pages unless it's like a double spread or it's literally like a full page panel. But I wanted to talk about this, and I know like it's a bit of a lewd scene. You know, you got a little fan service, but this I think is actually really important for Build King, and I'm sure everybody's like seen. You know, I push the Build King agenda on Twitter and stuff. I like the series. I think it has a lot of really cool concepts, and just how well I know Fujimoto is at constructing a world. And I don't mean that as like a pun, constructing a world, but I mean like from the story aspect. But I will say, just going into this chapter, I think this was actually a really good thing. Not from the fan service point, though I do think, you know, that's going to help. But one thing I legitimately think that hurt Toriko a little bit, and I was really hoping that Shimabukuro does in Build King, and I'm hoping this is it, is having a pretty good female lead. Because I think that it's just one of those things when you have a series, regardless if it's like, you know, it's primarily male, I think you need a female lead, or if it's a primary female series, I think you need a male lead. This is because I believe people like that balance, and especially in modern day Shonen Jump, because I've said it before, it's a lot of Shonen Jump series. Like when you look at a lot of older ones, when you look at like Dragon Ball, Naruto, One Piece, and sometimes Bleach, a lot of the female characters don't get nearly as much spotlight. They get underused a lot. And I've always disliked that, because I dislike the idea of having characters be useless on such like a broad kind of setup, where it's not like for the most part Black Clover, you don't see healers do a lot of stuff, but like anybody's magic can end up making them a healer. You still get some like Mimosa and stuff that are, you know, become more than healers, and then like Fairy Tail's Wendy and stuff. But you know what I mean? It's, you don't want there to ever be kind of like a classification of character that is just useless. And it's such a bum thing that it like came down to like just being in a lot of cases female characters, because, you know, like look at like Black Clover's Mereoleona, like she's super badass. I mean, people don't really care if they're female or male, like as long as they're badass characters and they're cool, you like them. Plus I mean, I think it sometimes adds a little extra when it's you know, something you wouldn't expect. Someone like Mereoleona, or like My Hero has like Mirko as well, or however you pronounce her name. She was like a big kind of that shocker too, and like both of them became super popular. Just, you know, you had these massively built badass chicks just destroying the people that they're up against the first time they fought. But anyway, you know what I mean? Like just from the base root of stuff, I don't like there ever being like, if, oh, there's a group of people that's lame. Like if it was an all-female series and it was like every male character, it's kind of like pointless. Then it's like, well, why even have them around? You know, it just seems like a waste sometime of characters. And I think that's the base root of it for me, at least. But I know a lot of people like having like, you know, cool female lead in a lot of Shonen Jumps, and a lot of newer series has been strong on that. So I always thought that was one thing in Toriko that was detrimental. And like Rin was a character, but Rin didn't really do anything, and she barely like was part of the plot. So I've always thought that was like a negative thing for Toriko, where if this chick, I like her design already too. I like the design of this character. I like her weird shoes, like the odd balls in her hair, like the gloves, and like she just looks like she's really nice. So that plus knowing Shimabukuro, even though she's you know, even though if the idea of her existing in this series, she's probably powerful. Well, that was one of the things at Toriko. The Rin got screwed over because she showed up early and then just didn't kind of go along with the power increased train that the other characters had. Whereas like any female character that showed up later or was already in the top areas were already absurdly powerful. You read Toriko and you see like where Setsuna was, like that thing was crazy. Like she was crazy. Like Setsuna, she ridiculous in terms of power levels. And she just was, you know, we knew at the start, we didn't know how powerful she was, but we knew that she was up there in like their world's power level system. She was up there somewhere. We just didn't know the extent of. So if this girl ends up becoming main cast member, she's the female lead, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, she'll end up, like, again, as long as she stays relevant, getting to like become like powerful, like, you know, where I can see the main cast and them kind of going. So thumbs up to that. Like, it's only been 5 minutes. Luckily I didn't go in like a 10-minute rant about this, but talk about the chapter itself. And again, I'm hoping that we see the next chapter to this character join the main cast, because I think it'd be so beneficial. And it's and I know it's a cheap move, but legitimately having like a big busty character like this that, you know, we've already got a little bit of fan service of, will help draw some attention over the series from the start. I know it's like a little cheap, but the Build King agenda is important. We gotta, you know, use all assets. Even in this chapter 2, I saw two different scenes of Toriko cameos. I don't know if there was another one, because there was one, the first guy we saw, because we see like the start of the chapter. I really like the world building as well in this chapter, and this is one of the things I like a lot about Shimabukuro, is he doesn't have a lot of waste panels. Like when he does chapters like this, he wants you to know more about this world. Like the first, like we have them, okay, they're at the beach, like they're at the shore of the continent. They decide to leave their house beasts there because they don't want people to freak out, misunderstand, because we know that house beasts in their world for the most part are dangerous, and so people aren't going to like be like, oh, this isn't okay, when there's gonna be people that obviously panic and probably try and attack them if they, you know, had the opportunity arise. Then they see the port, and it looks really cool. I like that even though you see this really badass looking city in the background with all these crazy constructs, we're starting with the port. We're starting where all the commotion is, and like there are these massive cranes that lift up these houses, so you don't realize how big they are until you really compare. Like they're literally lifting up these multiple story buildings, and the way it's described is, oh, because of storms and like everything, like houses end up in the oceans, and it's like you're essentially salvaging them. I thought that was just really cool as like a concept to have displayed in the series. And then you have like, oh, we're just gonna name materials. Oh, the platinum cedar, 3,000-year-old wood that they're using for lumber. Cement, this like as powerful as diamond. You know, clay that comes from trees that it's like it's essentially super malleable lumber. It's wood that you can craft at the extent as easy as, you know, what you do with clay. These are things that like his displays, small style things. These don't have to be big plot pieces, but there's something that lets you get an understanding of the world and like get a better kind of grasp on like what the carpenters have to do and like obtain in order to like fight back the monsters and the natural environments of the world and bad people. And even in the chapter, while they're describing it, and I was really happy to see the cameras, because the guy who's giving the platinum cedar, that one guy I'm fairly certain is one of the merchants from Toriko that's like at the port. I don't think that this like it's the same world as Toriko. I'm guessing maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I'm fairly certain that it's just a cameo. It's kind of like seeing Natsu and Lucy in Eden Zero, or seeing Haru and Elliot in Fairy Tail. They're cameos. My guess, I could be wrong, but like we see Toriko and Komatsu in there, and I think part of the thing, it would kind of like be really weird if it was in the same world. It's like you'd have all these busted characters that are already out doing stuff, and then it'd be like, well, what happened to the gourmet age? Did it just end and now they're in the building age or something? I like that more of like if it's just cameos. I'm hoping it's just that, because I want this to be their story. It'd be like how it's neat that Natsu and Lucy see cameos in Eden Zero, but I want it to be, you know, Shiki and Rebecca's story. You know what I mean? You'd probably want that of any sequel. Like any time, like if they were older characters show up, you want it to be a cameo or a crossover type thing, and not like, oh yeah, they exist, you know, take all the spotlight, you know, otherwise whatever kind of thing. I don't want that. But we did get more information of them talking about how like the Build Kings, exactly what they are, because Build King isn't like the title. It's not like Naruto want to be Hokage, Luffy being Pirate King, Asta being Wizard King kind of stuff. Build King is the structure. Build King is like the idea, like a god tier building. Build Masters are the title. Like a Build Master is somebody that builds a Build King. And again, this kind of stuff is important. They even named the organization you have to register with in order to kind of be a carpenter, like an official carpenter, the Build On organization. Now, Shimabukuro goes strong when it comes to world building and letting you display the letting you figure out the world. And again, I think he does it in such an interesting way that you're able to do it while still like not getting bored with exposition. Because the first thing we see in this chapter, it's done in 2 pages, just getting out information on the port, getting different materials, knowing about them, knowing there are bad guys as well, like in the port, getting material, finding out about about Build Kings. That was all in 2 pages. And then it's like, okay, we're finding about the Build On organization and what they need to do next. And it's all in the span of like, okay, they're getting lunch and they're eating. And there's like a funny part where I laughed because Nana is like very similar to me in this way. He's like, they get him alcohol, and he's they're just trying to get him to drink, because to him, you got to keep this in mind. It's like I'm gonna use this as an example because this was still fairly recent, and probably a lot of people that are listening have seen it. That scene in Jujutsu Kaisen that Satoru is like fighting the Sukuna for the first time, and he's like, one of my students is watching, so I'm gonna have to show off. You have a senior guy being like, oh, the lower guys are here. I have to look cool, because we see that Nana is not a drinker, and he's like, oh, we work so we can drink at the end of the day. He's trying to look more like a badass, and he drinks, and it's like you see Tonkatchi is like, oh wow, we need to get more alcohol over here, and Nana's just like, oh shit. I don't drink very often, but I do that to a degree too, because that's like, oh shit, I don't want to look like a lightweight in front of the fellas, so I usually end up drinking more than I should. I just thought that was funny, because it was done in a way that really told us a good amount of Nana's character in such a funny way, and in a way that it made a lot of sense, and I thought that was really cool. Because again, Shimabukuro is, again, one of the things he's really good at in things like world building, and I think this is an example of him getting better, an example of improvement. I think this chapter is a good example of improvement since Toriko, in a way. Because I think this scene with Nana told us a lot about his character in general. And then going to meet the house bandits, I thought was really cool, because it's got like this own style of like again, a simple thing like, oh, bandits, they're gonna try and jump people and steal from them, but they're done, and it's like, oh, you have these really big guys who disguise as little personal size houses, and then they wear it as armor. Like the first guy, he's an ugly looking dude. He's got this big nose and this big chin. He looks kind of silly in the armor, but it's cool at the same time, because I like the designs, I like the concept. But like I said, they're ugly yet cool, and I like that. I really enjoy that about like Shimabukuro's style, as he's not it's like Berserk had that when couple chapters ago when Griffith went against those, I don't remember if they're ogres or giants, but some of them were wearing like boats and houses as armor because they were so big, and I thought that was just a really cool concept, and I like seeing that here. But these guys, I think anyone could have just guessed that they were going to be, hey, we're early series, generic bad guys. We're gonna harass you. And then Tonkatchi just like seemed a little bit kind of more intrigued at the start, but one of them captures Renga, which again, I like that they use part of like the house to like be almost like a jail cell, kind of like if you had like these guys capture somebody and put them in a bird cage or some form of big confinement thing, or whatever their thing was, a pot or a jar or whatever, but it's like a room inside his house, but it's like on a knee pad for him. Again, I think that's just cool in concept. I really like that. And that's what bothered Tonkatchi. He's like, hey, it went from Tonkatchi being like the goofy version he is, and being like kind of very interested. And I think that's really good. And I think that his character in concept has a very Luffy, Son Goku, Son Wukong kind of vibe to it. I'm hoping people get, because the series is good, and I think a lot of people look at it more of like the carpentry aspect and ignore that. But he had like the series, and Shimabukuro in general has a very old school 90s vibe to it. I gotta push this. This is more material for the Build King agenda that I gotta push. But he ends up like getting mad, and he ends up using the his vigor hammer, does the 10 meter. It was just, again, as far as we know, this is his utmost level. Maybe he can do a little bit more as like his, this is dangerous, but I have to get as serious as possible kind of thing. But he ends up going to 10 meter, and he uses a new attack. It's a tornado, whereas like before it was 10 meter big swing. This is like a big spin. And we even saw like as he's using it, he's like, whoa, he's trying to kind of like hold himself over. So this was a little difficult for him. So it wasn't like I can do this easily, casually, pretty powerful. It was still like a degree of I have to put in the thing for it. And he describes again like like who he is when they ask how who are you, because he's so powerful. He's like, my name's Tonkatchi, I'm a carpenter who builds peace. And again, the concept of that is very weird, because like the idea of him building peace. But this chapter, as well as early on, he kind of views it as like he has to be powerful, and if he's powerful, he can stop any of the threats, he can stop any of the big bad guys, and if he can stop them, he can make peace. That's kind of how Tonkatchi is doing it, because when he says like you got to screw loose, it's not like the phrase he sees he sees bad people, it's like they need to be fixed. There's something wrong with them, and his job is like, I need to defeat them in order to fix them. Again, it's a very interesting way that Shimabukuro is done in concept, because it's kind of like how Toriko was like food, and it's like food, but then you looked at how like Toriko and a lot of these guys were, and the longer they fight, it get like go from like, oh, we're badass dudes fighting for whatever a reason is, and it go down to the conceptual level of like, they're fighting for food, and then you're like, why are they fighting for food? But then it's displayed as like essentially two predators, two powerful beasts that at a primal level are fighting for food, which is again something you'd see in the wild, because it takes it down to like that animalistic level of these two characters fighting to survive. And I like that Shimabukuro was able to take things at a conceptual level at such a weird way, but a very fun and cool way, and then build a story off it. I think he's super talented at that. That's one of his biggest traits, like combine that with the world building. So I really like this chapter. Obviously, I've really liked Build King. I'm excited for the world. I'm excited to see like how things are all displayed, and I can't wait for more. So this chapter was really good. It was a really good display of his world building. The first chapter, I think, did that as well, and the second chapter was just pretty much set at like, okay, we're gonna get things set in motion. And the third chapter was more at a little bit of backstory between Tonkatsu and Renga, as well as we got to see some cool visuals of like large scale stuff in the world. And this chapter, I think, was kind of like chapter 1, where it was just really good world building, really good foundation build for the series, and a really good display of the cast. So I'm hyped about that. Again, I'm hoping this girl is a main character member. We don't really know anything about her. They just call her Boss, and we see that she seems a little bit airheaded. Like she forgets that she's not wearing shorts when she goes hanging upside down, and she's wearing a skirt, so her panties are showing, kind of thing. It's a bit of a fan service lewd thing that's presented, but I like her character so far. And it's also, as just a side note, she's displayed as strong, because out of these bandits, she's their leader, so she has to be stronger than them. It has to be powerful enough that they acknowledge her as the leader. So anyway, other than that, though, comment below, tell me your thoughts are about this chapter, and tell me your thoughts are about like the series so far and what's to come. So other than that, though, comment below, thumbs up the video, from the like button, subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But other than that, I appreciate everybody's already subscribed. Thank you all for listening. Bye.